What's up, YouTube? My name is Zach Williams, and I'm here today to dispute a very common conflict in this world, and that is the conflict, the unending battle between the theory of evolution and the theory of creation. Now, it would seem that as far as all the scientific advances we've made, that it would disprove the theory of creation, right? However, the contrary. It seems as it's just elevated the amount of argument that goes on. Now, I'm here today just to overview it, and I am a creationist. Now, it's easier to chop down a tree from its root than going top down. So, I think it would be most appropriate if we were to forget all the little details, the little arguments that shoot back and forth all the time, and we go straight for the root of the issues. Alright, so what do these major belief systems boil down to? Well, the theory of creation boils down to theism, the belief in God, and the theory of atheism is what constitutes the theory of evolution. So, as a creationist, I can say that the biggest assumption made by atheism is the fact that there is no proof for God's existence. However, I can give you proof for God's existence, logically outlined and mathematically consistent. Now, these are not mainstream. You're not going to see them on NBC tonight, but they do exist and they are true, and you're welcome to dispute them. Alright, so I can think of several good cosmological arguments, and a cosmological argument is something that addresses the whole nature of the universe rather than something here on Earth specifically. But I'm going to give you one tonight because it's going to take a while to explain. So, first premise of this argument, I'm going to outline my premises A, B, C. In conclusion, over here on this side of the screen, that's why, I don't know, it's not a mistake that the camera's aimed the way it is. I need the space. So, premise number one, I'll just dive right into it. Everything that exists has an explanation for its existence, or it exists out of its own necessity. Now, let's say you walked out of your house this morning and you saw a tennis ball in the middle of your yard, and it's not yours, you don't know how it got there. However, you know not to assume that it's just there for no reason. You know that something caused it to be there. You're not just going to assume that it's there and there's no explanation for it, because you know, indeed, it has an explanation. This thinking applies to everything. Everything that we know of, except something that exists out of its own necessity, has an explanation, has a cause for its existence. Now, what do I mean when I say something exists out of its own necessity? What I am talking about is an abstract object, something like a number, something that we know that sets the rules for the universe, but we don't know why they exist. They exist outside of the universe as well. An abstract object is a number, for example. Numbers exist outside of the known universe. Numbers don't have an explanation for their existence. Why? Well, because we know 2 plus 2 equals 4, and we know that the square root of 9 equals 3, but we don't know why. We don't know why it works like that. We don't know why these rules are in place. Alright, so to recap that premise A, everything in existence has an explanation for its existence, or it exists out of its own necessity. Okay, so my second premise is that, this is going to be more controversial, if the universe has a cause for its existence, God is that cause. And you may be thinking, how can you assume something like that? Well, here's the deal. I'm not talking about the storybook God. I'm not talking about the God who sits up on a cloud and has magical powers and controls everything here on Earth. I'm talking about something that is outside of the known universe. I'm talking about something that's outside of time, space, and matter, which are what make up the universe. I'm talking about a transcendent, unembodied mind. That is who I believe God is. Not some mythical figure with magical powers and human properties, but the nature of order itself. Now, why do I say the nature of order? Like I said in my previous premise, we have all these rules, like 2 plus 2 equals 4. We have all these mathematical constants, which are what holds us to the ground, like the gravitational constant. We have all these numbers, but we don't know where they come from. Well, that comes from order. Order comes from this mathematical logic. And Order is outside, it is an abstract object, it is outside of the known universe, therefore it exists out of its own necessity. It exists and has no cause. Therefore, I believe my picture of God is the nature of order, the one who writes all the rules that the universe follows. Not some magical creature who lives inside the universe, but something outside of the universe. Therefore, God is plausible as an explanation for the universe. The premise again was, if the universe has a cause, God is the cause for the universe. So, because the universe can't cause itself, something in the universe can't cause the universe, the cause for the universe, if it exists, has to be something outside of the universe, therefore outside of time, space, and matter. It's God, unless you can present me with another option. Alright, so that does it for my second premise, right there. Third premise, premise C, the universe exists. I really don't think I have to explain that one to you. If you're really disputing if the universe exists or not, then maybe this video is not for you. But it's my third premise nonetheless. And following from premises A and C, 1 and 3, we get the conclusion that the universe has a cause for its existence. Because if everything in existence has a cause for its existence, unless it exists out of its own necessity, and the universe has a cause for its existence because the universe exists. It's as simple as that. Now, you might think, why doesn't the universe exist out of its own necessity? Because the universe doesn't just exist for no reason. Matter in this universe we know has a cause. The Big Bang Theory attempts to explain that. The things that make up the universe are controlled by mathematical constants, which are outside of this universe. Therefore, the universe does not exist out of its own necessity. So, that being said, premise 3, the universe exists, what follows from the A and C, the universe has a cause for its existence, and from premise 2, we know that God has to be the cause for the universe's existence. Therefore, God exists. God is the cause for the universe's existence. It's as simple as that. You can try to dispute it. Now, you probably don't like what I said. You probably think I'm a nutcase, and you probably want to disprove me in front of thousands of YouTube viewers. Alright, so, with an argument logically laid out like this, to disprove it, you can't just deny the conclusion. You can't just say, well, that doesn't make sense because God isn't the cause of the universe. You have to disprove one of the premises, and the argument will fall apart. So, can you dispute premise A, which is that everything in existence has a cause for its existence, blah, 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 blah. Can you dispute that? You could, but you'd end up looking like a nut in the end, because in order to say that that isn't true, then you have to say that things can happen at random, which is completely unscientific, because science looks for the causes of things. Science is based on the idea that everything has a cause. You're thinking completely unscientifically if you're saying that that isn't true. Therefore, it's pretty much arbitrary to try to disprove premise 1. Now, premise 2 is that the universe has a... if the universe has a cause, then God is that cause. Now, this is going to draw a lot more fire. But to disprove that, you have to give me another cause for the universe. You have to give me something else that could cause the universe that is outside of the universe, outside of time, space, and matter. Well, I can give you some time to think about that, but you're probably not going to come up with anything, because I'm talking about something that is an abstract object, something that exists outside of the universe, because the universe could not have caused itself. Alright, so if you try to dispute premise 2, even though you may want to really badly, you kind of tie yourself in a knot. Now, premise 3, the universe exists. No, I can't think of any arguments with that either. Alright, so following from those 3 premises, if they are all true, the inevitable conclusion is that God is the cause of the universe. Alright, so that's the argument. I'm going to add more arguments in future videos. But here, I want to ask you, You may think, hey, this can't make sense, this kid here is younger than I am, so he must be wrong. How about you ignore that? How about you ignore the fact of how young I am, or you ignore the fact of what I stand for, and you just simply look at the argument. Does it make sense to you? Does it make sense? That's all that matters. No other factors are going to change the inevitable outcome. If it makes sense to you, then say so. If it doesn't make sense to you, then I expect a response, and not just some nasty comment down in the box like I've had recently, telling me what an idiot I am for not believing what everybody else believes. I expect something that's intellectual. I expect you to disprove one of my premises. I expect you to debate me personally as far as how these arguments follow to the conclusion. I expect that. But if you're wondering this, if you're really thinking about this for the first time, let me ask you, does it make sense? The answer is, yes, it does. So let me give you more examples for why it makes sense. Like, how does this all come together? How do all the pieces of the puzzle fit? Well, let me tell you. Most people think that God, as illustrated in the Bible, is that storybook character. That Michelangelo painting. The magic guy sitting up on the cloud. Now, the first verse of the first chapter of the Gospel of John says this: in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. How perfectly does that illustrate what I was telling you about as far as what God is, the nature of order? Because that describes God as a non-physical system. Mathematics, perhaps. We don't know why we have them. We just know that we have them. Also in the Bible, it is described to Moses that God, when he asks, "What do I call you, God?" God says, "I am. Call me I am." I am, as in not like some weird Jewish word, but two words, I am. I exist. That's about as simple as it gets. It's not, he doesn't claim to be the magic guy up on the cloud. It makes a lot of sense. There's so many practical applications of how this works. You see, a lot of atheists like to make fun of the idea that creationists will say, well, we are held together, this planet is held together by God. God makes it happen because God wants it to. Though that may sound really corny and really dumb on the outside, think about what it really means. If God is something that's outside of space and time, if God is the nature of order, then God is the one who writes those mathematical constants that the world and the universe has to abide by. When God says in Genesis that he was over the Spirit, when the Spirit of God was over the waters, and he says that he spoke the universe into being, he doesn't say that he took this and he molded it like that. He says he spoke it into being. He wrote the rules, those mathematical constants, that the universe plays by. No explanation of atheism, no alternative view can come up with an explanation for those numbers. Alright, so I think I've pretty well addressed that, and perhaps bored some people to tears, and encouraged some to turn off this video halfway through. But if you manage to make it through awake and with the video still on, I would encourage you to give me some feedback on it. Do you believe this? And if not, why don't you believe this? Alright, well thank you guys. I promise I will make more videos. Thank you just so much for even taking the time to watch this video. And seriously think about it. Don't just accept what everybody else believes to be true. Be the scientist in the group. Be the one who really challenges it and thinks about it intellectually.